السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This video is going to be the first video in a series where we go through the Quran, read in Arabic but discussed in English. We are not scholars, we are not linguists, we are not specialized in this field. We are learning about the Quran to our best understanding and sharing our learning process with the world. For those of you that believe that the Quran should only be interpreted by experts, I have the next coming up section as an excerpt from a famous interpreter, translator, a person who tries to help us understand the meaning of the Quran, and very renowned. And in it, he states that if the Quran was meant to be understood, or meant to be interpreted by a certain person, then God would have appointed someone to do so. He would have even appointed the Prophet to do so, but he did not. The Quran is in and of itself supposed to be enough, and in the Quran itself it mentions if you read it with an open heart, then trying to understand, trying to learn, then God will bless you. So if you want the following excerpt, feel free to check it out, but if you want to skip to the Quran, click on the section in the link below and jump straight into it. Other than that, see you here every Friday. مع السلامة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحمدك ربي وأستعينك وأصلي وأسلم على خير خلقك سيدنا محمد، وبعد. فقد انتهينا في اللقاءات السابقة إلى تحديد معنى القرآن، وبينا أن القرآن جاء منهجا وجاء معجزة، وبينا أن الله لمعجزة القرآن وثقه وحفظه بنفسه ولم يترك ذلك للبشر، وبينا أننا لا نفسر القرآن وإنما نحوم بخواطرنا حول القرآن، لعل الله يفيض علينا بعض مواليد أسراره في كونه. وقلنا إنه لو جاز لأحد أن يفسر القرآن لتركه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مفسرا، ولكن الله سبحانه جعل رسوله يبين للناس ما نزل إليهم مما يطلب التكليف فيه، ولا يختلف فيه فرد في عصر عن عصر. وأما عطاءات الأسرار في كليات القرآن وكونيات الكون فقد ترك الله لها مواليدها في القرآن حتى تجيء مواليدها في الكون.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to my stream. Welcome to my stream with Safa over here. Let's just move the camera a little bit so that you're included. The point of today's session, and hopefully many sessions after this, is so that we can go over the Quran. The Quran being the holy book that has been brought down to the Muslims via the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam means, how do we translate? Let's literally translate sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As you can see, we're using Google to kind of translate everything. It would be used like the messenger of Allah instead of the prophet. And if we take the actual translation, no, how about we go to the end? Peace be upon him is the loose translation. It's not quite accurate because it means we pray to God for him and we salute him in a way. So we pray to God and we salute him, and we're going to try and translate everything literally, but also meaning-wise, because we are not linguistic experts. We're not here to translate Arabic in its best form. We're trying to give you our best understanding of the Quran as we go along. Let's start with introductions. My name is Ahmed. I'm Palestinian, but I'm born in Jordan. That's a nuance that you'll have to join my channel to understand. I grew up in Bahrain and I lived in Dubai for 10 years. So my education in Islam comes from coming from a Muslim family, as well as my education in Bahrain, where I studied in a Muslim school. It was an American school, but they had Muslim classes and they had Arabic classes, so my English is a lot stronger than my Arabic language ability. However, I have studied the Quran somewhat as a kid, but I'm looking to approach it with a fresh eye and with a fresh perspective so that I can understand it with all the knowledge that I've gained today. This won't be the last time that I read the Quran, because it takes a lot to understand it truly and properly. We are not claiming that we are giving you the meaning of the Quran and that you should take this as the gospel word of God. We are merely sharing our understanding of the book. And specifically, we would like to explain that there is no general interpretation of the Quran. Safa, can you explain a little bit more about that so that we know the frame of reference?
Yeah, there's no one interpretation of the Quran, because if it was meant to be that there is one interpretation, then the Prophet should have given that interpretation,
Okay.
but there isn't. So all what Muslims were doing for a lot of years are trying to think about the verses of the Quran and give the meaning of it, their thoughts about it. But it's not the interpretation. And this is what we will be doing, just giving our thoughts and our understanding of it.
Our own human understanding. So I've introduced myself. Ahmed, what introduction would you like? You're free to do it as limited as possible.
Yeah. My name is Safa. I'm Egyptian. I lived in Egypt for my whole life. I moved to the Netherlands 2 years ago. I lived in Italy also for 2 years, but for most of my life I was living in Egypt. So I have a very good education in Arabic and in Islam in general.
Great. Thank you for joining me. So there you go. We're reading the Quran. You're going to hear it in Arabic, but we're going to discuss it in English. And yeah, we'll see how far this goes. This is going to be an interesting journey. When we start reading the Quran, or when you read any verse, there are two sentences or phrases that we always begin with, which is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم and بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The main one that you have to repeat is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which translates to in the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful.
Yeah, and here we can also give an explanation of the two words Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim.
Okay.
The two words actually come from Ar-Rahma, so they come from mercy. So Ar-Rahim is the merciful, and Ar-Rahman is also the merciful in a bigger, let's say...
all-encompassing sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, while it's not necessary, it still helps. It loosely translates to I seek refuge with Allah from the accursed Satan.
Yeah, and the reason we say that before starting to read the Quran is to have yourself clear for understanding it more, and not to have any intrusions or thoughts that divert you from the actual meaning of it.
Because the pursuit of understanding what is in the Quran, what is intended, is complicated and requires the best judgment that you can have, and we've all been led astray from a variety of reasons for a variety of issues, pressures, desires. Being human is complicated, so we're trying to approach it with as clear a mind as possible, as much as we can. Cool. This is live, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat room. I will message here. Feel free to drop your questions here. We will check the questions once every 15 to 20 minutes or so. And then, other than that, I think we should just get started.
Yeah, I think we should also talk a bit more about Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Okay.
So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is what you say before starting reading the Quran. It's also what Muslims say before doing anything.
Yeah.
Anything good, before eating, before anything.
Before beginning a project, it's always in the name of God. Everything you do is in the name of God, the most gracious and most merciful.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of context. I heard this recently, but it kind of makes sense to me. In terms of the three prophets, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, they each brought different messages of the same God. So Moses, who was brought down for the Jewish people, brought down the oneness of God, that there is one God. Jesus brought down roughly the unconditional love, the forgiveness of God, and Muhammad brought down the divine will, or the surrender to God. So as I understand it, the process of reading the Quran, of learning through this, is the act of submitting and surrendering to Allah, the Lord, God, the universe, whatever you want to call the divine power that we all come from, as I understand it.
Yeah. And Allah is the name of God in Islam. In
Yes.
the Muslim faith,
Yes.
we say Allah.
But Allah, God also has 100 names? 99 names?
99 names.
99
Yeah.
names? Aside from Allah, or 99 names including Allah?
I think aside from Allah.
Aside from Allah. Allah being
Yeah.
the 100th name.
I think so, yeah.
We will find this
we
out.
we can double check.
But cool. So the website that we are using for reading the Quran is called Quran.com. And the reason why we're using it is for many reasons. One, we can play the way that it's pronounced properly, so you get to hear it phonetically correct. And then also you have the translation right below it. And we will discuss each point as we get along in English.
Yeah, I personally also read the interpretation in Arabic from another website. So, yeah, I can give more context also from the other.
Cool.
reading.
Well, maybe before we jump into the actual reading, let's explain what these numbers are. You see before the screen, you see 1:1. The Quran is split into, let's call them chapters. In Arabic, they're called a surah. A surah is a chapter, is a collection of verses. So Al-Fatiha has 7 verses, whereas Al-Baqarah has a lot more than 7 verses. It has like 237. I don't know how far we're going to go. We're going to take it step by step with the idea of trying to cover as many of these as possible. Obviously, the book is quite long, and this might take us a lot of sessions to try and get through. But generally, when you see 1:1, for example, 1:1 means surah number 1 and ayah number 1. And if you go, this becomes 1:2, surah number 1, ayah number 2, and we're going to go through them one by one until we get to the end. Cool. Like I said, any questions? Oh, السلام عليكم Rabadi. Vlad's, وعليكم السلام. السلام. Yeah, so we'll check the messages once every 10 minutes or so. I'm using an older setup. I don't have my second monitor, so it's a little bit chaotic sometimes. But for the most part, I think we'll be okay. So let's get started. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, the first ayah in the first surah. Let's hear it and then discuss it.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Okay, so this is something that we've described. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's the first phrase. We have it translated, and we've talked about it a little bit. In the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful. This you begin with before reading the Quran in any stage, but it's literally the first words in the book.
Yeah, and what Muslims say before starting
Anything new. Yeah.
And I think it's also remarkable that it says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and both words refer to mercy. While like you said, Allah has 99 other names.
Yeah.
Or all the names are 99, but these are the two that we start with everything, and they both refer to mercy.
It's a very significant lesson that God is most merciful above all to begin with, to start with.
To all, all humans, to everyone. Yeah.
Next, we have in Surah Al-Fatiha. Al-Fatiha, by the way, means the opener. The opener, it's just the opener chapter, essentially. And the next verse goes,
الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Okay, and Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, even though it says all praise for Allah, Lord of all worlds, I feel like it misses an important phrase of Alhamd, which is thanks. As you can see, all praises, they chose all praises for Allah, Lord of the worlds, but Alhamd also means thanks. Thanks God, thanks, essentially you're saying thank you God. Lord of the universe, Lord of the worlds, Al-Alameen of all the worlds.
Yeah. And like they always say, like it's not related to Islam even, they always say it's important to practice gratitude.
Yes.
This is how I see it, like it's to show gratitude for everything.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of scientific studies that the more gratitude you show, the better your experience is, the better your perspective is, the more open you are. So this is teaching and instructing to give thanks, so to speak.
Yes, and I think we should also explain that Al-Fatiha overall is very important in Islam.
Al-Fatiha being the surah number 1 that we're talking about.
Yes, it's very important in Islam because this is what Muslims say when they pray every time in
Okay.
every rak'ah.
That's correct. So now we're talking about prayer. When it comes to prayer, there's a specific format to pray that we have learned from the Prophet, praise be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And essentially, Al-Fatiha, the 7 verses that we're about to read, we're in verse 2 of 7, are said in every prayer. They open up every prayer, and then you open up to the rest of the Quran, depending on what you want to pray for.
Yeah, so it's very, very important to the Muslim faith.
Yeah.
This first surah.
Yeah. Just checking. Cool. Next, we've seen these words before, but we'll hear them again.
الرحمن الرحيم مالك
Now you'll see that this happens quite a lot. So Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, if you'll notice, they were in the first one. Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And then Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, thanks to God, Lord of the worlds. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, again, the most compassionate and the most merciful. And you'll see this within the Quran quite a lot. There is quite a bit of repetition. The purpose of which I don't fully understand, but I know that there are some messages that are expected to be repeated in a specific way and for a certain effect. My understanding is quite limited as to why.
Yeah, me too. But I think it is very significant that you say Rahman Rahim so many times, which refers to mercy
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It shows that it's a religion
Of mercy. Yeah.
and compassion and so on.
Yeah. Malik Yawm al-Din. Oh.
مالك يوم الدين
Malik Yawm al-Din. 3 words, quite clear. Maliki, which means master or owner. The person who owns, the person who it belongs to. Yawm al-Din, which is an interesting turn of phrase because al-Din literally translates to religion. But in this context, Yawm al-Din, they mean the day of judgment, the day that religion will, I guess, take into effect because it's the form of judgment for our behaviors. And this is the understanding.
Yeah, and so I think in the Quran it says Yawm al-Qiyamah, Yawm al-Din, Yawm al-Hisab, Yawm al-Hashr, Yawm al-Ba'ath. So these are all different ways to say the end of days.
The
or
end of days, judgment day.
Resurrection
Okay.
day. But I think that there is a reason why sometimes it says Yawm al-Din and sometimes it says Yawm
Yeah.
al-Ba'ath, sometimes it says Yawm al-Qiyamah.
Yeah.
I think they are not all, they
This-
don't have the exact same meaning.
Okay. Clear? So Malik Yawm al-Din in this context, the day of judgment, but also the day of religion.
It says the day of religion, and in a way, Ad-Din is also that we owe something when you owe something.
Okay.
Ad-Din.
Oh, okay. So
it
there's
might be the day that you also owe your blessings or
pay back everything that you owe,
pay,
so to
yeah,
speak. Yeah.
kind of.
Day of
It can
judgment,
be-
the day of owing, the day of paying back what you owe, so to speak.
It can be in a way.
Interesting.
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. For me, if I understand it, to translate it loosely, it says إياك نعبد, of you we worship, وإياك نستعين, and of you we request for help. We kind of نستعين. It's a bit of a
We ask you for help and support, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's for you we worship, and for you we ask for help. It's clear that it's one is directional what you do for God, and the other is directional what God does for you, so to speak. But it's both a request coming from the human. The human is saying, to you I worship, and to you I ask for help. Yeah, this is a powerful one for me.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم
Guide us along the straight path. Now, for me, it starts with ihdina. Ihdina does mean guide us, but for me, it also means bless us or give us with like
Give us like a gift.
it's like a gift.
gift
It's
us,
exactly it's gift us the clarity of the right path, not just to guide us, but it's almost like it's given from God to us. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. And Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, is a metaphor for walking along the correct path and being, if you want to talk about it in New Age time, it's about vibrating at your highest frequency and heading in the right direction so that you're most responsive and most harmonious with your environment around you. But in this case, it talks about the path towards God, towards what we've talked about before, towards submitting, towards forgiveness, towards the correct path. Do you have any other points, or shall we jump to the next one?
No, that's good for me.
And the last one is
صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Now, as you can see, also it's very beautiful the way that it's pronounced, it's spoken, and there's a reason why we're playing it, because when we play it, it is recorded by somebody who has practiced in it. We, of course, can speak it, but it's better to kind of get the nuances, because Arabic is so complicated. As you'll notice, there are signs above and below every word, so it's almost musical or poetic in its nature, so to speak. But so let's jump into this. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Let's start with the first path. The path of those that you have bestowed upon your favors on them. So this is the path that we're talking about from the previous one. Guide us to the right path, the path that you have passed to the ones that you have blessed, not of the ones who earned your wrath. The ones who earned your wrath on themselves, or the ones who go astray, or the ones who are in the dark.
The ones who are lost.
The ones who are lost. So here you're asking for God to guide you along the path that is along the path that He is chosen for the blessed people, and away from the path that He has given them His wrath, or are in the dark. And He doesn't say who those are, because it's not a specific set of people. Within the Muslim community, you have some people who have gained God's wrath and who are lost, and you have some people who have the correct guiding and blessing. It's not to say that it's a specific type of people, it's to say it's the subset of people that have truly gone down the right path versus being lost or angry or wrathful, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that's the first surah. That's the first chapter of the book. It's very simple, seven ayat. So this is why it's in the first of every prayer, because it's actually quite easy to kind of accomplish. And this is repeated time and time again. And as you can see, in its simplicity, it's beautiful. Nothing's being asked of you. God's not asking of you anything other than to ask for guidance and to lean on Him and to stay away from those who have lost their way. Very clean, very beautiful, very direct. How are we doing? We're doing good for volume. Let me just check the audio levels to make sure that it all works well.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Cool. Now we will jump to the next surah. Okay. I guess we'll have to do it this way. Next surah. But why is it not showing that it's the second one? Al-Baqarah. Okay, we've now entered Surah Al-Baqarah, as you can see, indicated by 2-1. But I don't know. Yeah, and here it says Surah Al-Baqarah, but it says it in Arabic. Now, Al-Baqarah means
Cow.
the cow. So this is the parable of the cow, let's say. The story of the cow. I've read it before many times. I can't give them an explanation of why it's called Surah Al-Baqarah.
Yeah, I cannot.
Well, maybe at the end of the surah we will understand and we will be able to share why the expression was used for Surah Al-Baqarah. Cool. Now this is where the Quran gets a bit interesting. One thing to note before we continue, the Quran is in the same language that it was produced in 1,400 years ago, let's say. 1,400, 500 years ago, roughly. Which means it's in Arabic. It has not been changed. And so a lot of its poetry remains, and this is kind of where we enter the poetry of the book, because some of it isn't necessarily words, but letters. So let's start with the very first.
الحمد لله بسم الله الرحمن
again.
الرحيم
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God.
الحمد لله رب
it's on the next one.
العالمين.
Okay, it's repeating the previous one. Al-Fatiha. Okay,
Yeah, I think you can
click from here. Yeah, it was just stuck on the previous one.
ألف لام ميم.
Okay, so this is quite interesting because this isn't a sentence, but rather three letters. And three letters connected in a way, but this is not a word. Alif, Lam, Mim. A-L-M, let's say.
Yeah. So and this is the first ayah in some surah.
Yep. So there's multiple chapters. So
yeah, there are multiple chapters
that begin this way.
start with letters that do not form a word. So this is Alif Lam Mim. These are three letters. Together, they are not a word. It's just the letters. And usually when this happens in surah, the next ayah usually talks about the book, about the Quran.
Okay.
Refers to the Quran in a way. So some people say that this is God telling us that He's speaking to us in our own language.
Okay.
In Arabic letters, because this is the language that is used in Quran. So this is like referring to the letters that compose this book.
Okay.
That He is talking to us in our own language.
Okay.
Basically.
I like that.
That's an explanation.
Yeah,
of course, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I think it makes sense.
It does make sense, but for me, I'm a very curious person, and I want to know why. Maybe that's one thing that we can do. We can add this to the list of Quran notes, passages to be explained. I've essentially compiling 2-1 Surah Al-Baqarah. So here I'm writing what has been written, and here I'm writing Surah Al-Baqarah, so I know the reference, and essentially I will save these for later dates to be reviewed. I want to understand more about this, and so I'm going to look at it in a different light.
Yeah. There is another explanation that I read, is that this can be the name of the surah, but also no one knows. So there are different explanations for this.
Well, here's a question. In the Quran, it says Surah Al-Baqarah, does it not?
Yeah, but some people say maybe it's also a reference to the surah in a way.
Okay.
But again, no one really knows. I can say 100% this is the meaning of it or why it's mentioned like this. But
Okay.
as you can see, if you go to the next
one.
ayah,
Yep.
it's ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه. It's talking about the Quran.
Yeah. Okay. So what does it say about the Quran?
ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين.
Okay. And the translation is this is the book, ذلك الكتاب, which is interesting that they say this when it's that book. لا ريب فيه. لا ريب فيه isn't so much that there's doubt about it. Is ريب doubt?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, what I understood from it was that there's no error in it.
No, it's doubt.
It's doubt, specifically doubt. No doubt فيه. هدى للمتقين. It's a guide for those that are muttaqeen, mindful of Allah. I don't think is inaccurate.
I don't think this is a good
It's almost like a guide for those Puritans. If someone al-taqwa is to do something purely in a purified way. So when you do it in an excellent way, you're kind of you're expanding upon your graft to an excellent level. So
I think al-taqwa is that you avoid something bad.
Okay.
But that's also that's a debate that we can have. Al-muttaqin, it's like أنا بتقي الشر مثلا. I stay away from harm.
Yeah.
So al-muttaqin is those who stay away from bad things. as far as I understand it.
If we take the simplicity of the word, taqwa is piety. Piety is reverence of God. What does piety mean? Well, this is the beauty of the internet. We can take one word and pop it into another expression. The quality of being religious or reverent. Hay al-taqwa. So it's not just excellent, but it's also specifically of being religious and reverent. I believe which is accepted in unthinking conventional reference. No, this is more accurate. Acts of piety and charity. Piety are with God in mind, and charity is to give back.
Yeah, again, I think that we can, it can be explained in different ways. The way I understood it is, muttaqin is, like you say, ittaqin nar, when in other places in the Quran it says ittaqin nar or ittaqi something bad. So stay away from it, like protect yourself from it.
Okay, so taqwa can be, okay, so there are multiple meanings to the word, and that's the beauty of the Arabic language, is it's very sophisticated and rich. So there are ways taqwa can be like taqi, to like avoid something, but also can be done about piety. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. But anyway, the book that they say, this is the book, that is the book, no doubt about it. It's a blessing, huda lil muttaqin. What does huda mean?
Guidance.
So it's clarity of thought that gives you clarity and helps you see correctly.
Yeah.
But specifically for those that are God conscious, for those that are pious, for those that are attempting to be pathful, to be righteous in their path.
And there are two ways to read this ayah. So you can say ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين, and you can say ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. If you see the 3 dots on top of raib and then the 3 dots on top of fi, that means that you can either stop at la raib or stop at fi. So, but basically the meaning is the same. If you say ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين, you're saying that this book
has no doubt, and it has a blessing, it has guidance for the pious,
for the people who
for the pious.
Or you can say ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه, you can say there is no doubt
in it
about this book,
and it is
a guidance to those who seek protection.
Interesting. So as you can see, it's quite complicated to learn about the Quran, and that's why we're taking it step by step, but there are multiple understandings of this phrase. Cool. Next.
الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون.
Okay. So here it ends, verse 2, it ends with huda lil muttaqin, for the God conscious, for the pious, and I believe the next one talks about those specific people, which says الذين يؤمنون بالغيب, those who believe in the unseen.
And again, the unseen is not a very accurate translation of al-ghaib. Al-ghaib
the unknown.
Is more the unknown.
Okay.
Al-ghaib is not something that only you do not see. It's something that you do not know and you cannot reach with your thinking. So I read an explanation that I cannot say, for example, that tomorrow's, let's say there's a weather forecast. So tomorrow they're saying that the weather will be, I don't know, 17 degrees or something. This is not ghaib, because in a way, by using something, I don't know, they predicted what the weather will be tomorrow. So this is not ghaib. Al-ghaib is something that you do not see, you do not hear, you cannot reach it with your brain, with your mind, by thinking about it, but yet you believe in it.
Okay.
And that's, I think, fundamental to the Muslim faith, is that you believe in al-ghaib, you believe in something that you do not see, you do not know, and you cannot logically reach it just by using your mind.
Or your senses, which is, I guess...
Or your senses, yes.
Which is the problem with why most atheists are atheists, is because they cannot interact with or engage with anything religious, because it's kind of by design, but that's kind of the problem that most atheists have, and I understand it, is that if you can't really deal with it, if you can't validate these things, how do you know if you're right or wrong? You are dealing with a lot of the unknown, and in religion it encourages that, but science obviously is a little bit different of an approach. So الذين يؤمنون بالغيب, who believe in the unseen or the unknown, as we just said. ويقيمون الصلاة ويقيمون الصلوات, which what?
Yeah, I think the pronunciation is salat.
ويقيمون الصلاة, yeah, probably this is why we have it done correctly.
Yeah.
Which يقيمون الصلاة, which means and they commit to, or they get up to do الصلاة, which is prayer. ومما رزقناهم, and whom we have provided with them or blessed them.
And they spend.
And they spend.
ومما رزقناهم ينفقون means like from what we have given to, from what we bless them with, they spend like their money, for example. Like they spend the money that we have given them.
Yeah.
So it's also, I think it's part of the Muslim faith when it comes to spending money and giving zakah, for example, is that Muslims should not see their money as their own. They should see that this is a blessing from God.
Yeah.
That He has given them money, and from it they spend this money.
There is a directive later in the Quran of how much money you should give, or some sort of understanding of how you should give away your money. They have a bare minimum, and it's I think like 2.5%. I'm not sure.
I think so, yeah.
But the more you give, the better God rewards you, and that's kind of the main message that we're trying to receive. That we're going to mention here, that the pious ones are the ones that, from what we have blessed them, they spend. From what we have blessed them, they give out and they do. Cool.
So in this ayah, so it says, so in the previous one it talks about that this book has guidance. This book, which is the Quran, gives guidance to the people who seek protection, and these people are the pious ones, and then he describes these people as the ones who believe in the unknown and pray, establish prayer, and spend from the money that we have blessed them with.
Yeah. So those are the pious ones. So the one thing that's missing for me
it's the believers. I think the most accurate word to describe it is the believers.
No, but they used al-muttaqiyin, not the believers. Not just believing, because you have to believe is one step, but you have to pray and you have to give back what you've received.
Yeah.
So for me to be that level, the one thing that's missing from my life is prayer, because I believe in the unseen and I try to donate as often as possible.
Yeah.
But I still lack in the prayer aspect of things, and I think this is something that I need to improve upon and work on, to be pious, not just a believer, but like the next level of belief, an active believer, an acting believer. Okay, it's gotten a little bit smaller, but I mean for most of you it's going to be very difficult anyway.
والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون.
Okay. Now here's the first ayah or verse that is directed towards the Prophet. Correct? It's the one where in the Quran this is being directed to, as if it is being spoken to the Prophet himself, which I guess it kind of ties back to the whole reason of why we say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, praise be upon him, for the Prophet Muhammad, because the Quran was brought to him, and a lot of the Quran is written from that perspective. What was said to Muhammad and what Muhammad tells the people. So he does act as the link between us and God, so to speak. And here they say, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أَنزَلَ إِلَيْكَ, and those who believe what has been revealed to you. The O Prophet is in between parentheses because it's not said, but we understand it because it's speaking from the first person. What was brought down to you, and we know that the Quran was brought down to Muhammad. So that contextually we understand O Prophet. And what has been revealed before you, and here they refer to obviously Moses and Jesus, but also all the prophets, because in Islam, and you'll realize through the Quran, there are many prophets that have been brought down over many a time, and they each had a different version, different message, different understanding, a different purpose. And then the last,
meaning that and they believe in the hereafter. Al-akhirah is what is Yeah, the translation I think is the hereafter, which is what happens after
Yeah.
we die, the
But
other life.
akhirah literally means the last one. Like al-akhirah is the last thing that's going to happen. So that, at least that's how it's understanding. So it says hereafter because that's the way that we kind of understand. If we the here and then there's after, but here they're kind of talking about what happens after death,
After death.
after life ceases to end, what is happening. And
yeah, and this ayah is the continuation of the previous two.
Yeah.
It talks about the pious ones or the ones who
the pious ones, yeah,
believe.
yeah, who take their belief and
Who
expand on
pray
it,
and,
yeah,
and
who,
spend from
and
what God
what
has
we've given
blessed
them.
and then they believe. And these people are the ones who believe in you, speaking to the Prophet.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go up, yeah. الذين يؤمنون بما أنزل
The ones that
afterwards.
Yeah.
الذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك. Yeah, so they believe in what has been revealed to you in terms of the Quran.
Yep.
And وما أنزل من قبلك, like you mentioned, everything before the Prophet.
The
all
Holy
the
Bible
other-
and the Torah. The Quran does reference the Holy
Yeah.
Bible and the Torah as religious texts from God, and they will be referred to in this book quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. وبالآخرة هم يوقنون. يوقنون means that they believe in it without any doubt.
Without
So
a
they
shadow of a
have-
doubt.
They have no doubt that there is another life.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it in English.
No, that's
Akhirah,
great.
but it's like,
Yeah, the kind of heaven and hell, but that something will happen after you die.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, personally, I think this is something that I struggle with as well. I firmly believe in God. I firmly believe in religion. I don't know what I think about heaven and hell. I don't know if I think of it as metaphorical or literal or if it's a combination. I'm not sure personally what I understand. So I don't, for instance, firmly believe in the hereafter, even though it's been suggested, but this is a learning experience. I don't judge myself where I am on my learning journey.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it is part of the ghaibiyat, of the ghaib. That
Of the
it's something
unknown.
that you do not see, you do not have any proof of, but yeah,
You have to believe in it.
believe in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون.
Okay. Same continuation. We're continuing from those people who believe in God, pray, and give to donate. Those who believe to what has been revealed to the Prophet, what has been revealed before him, and surely in the hereafter. It is they who are truly guided by the Lord. أولئك على هدى من ربهم. And it is they who will be successful. وأولئك هم المفلحون.
Yeah, and I also think that successful is not an accurate translation of muflihun.
Okay.
Because I think al-muflihun is like
Prospering.
min filaha.
Okay. Which means
That, like
farming.
What you reap is what you sow.
Yeah,
It's
So it's the sowers. It's the sowers because they've done the work, they've planted the seed, they've had the plant grow, and the
Exactly.
sowers are the ones that are collecting the bounty of the blessings.
Exactly.
The ones who have succeeded in, it's not just success, it's a success that is tied to work and effort that they have put in.
Yes.
Okay.
إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون.
Okay.
So here it shifts. So we were talking about the believers.
Yep.
And what they do and what will happen and so on. And here he starts talking about الذين كفروا. الذين كفروا, and kafaru is also a very interesting word. So it's translated for those who persist in disbelief. Actually, kafaru comes from the word kafara,
Which means to cover.
which means to cover.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can say like a laylu kafir, for example, like
Yeah,
the
the
night
night
is
covers-
kafir because it
covers the whole-
because
everything.
There's no light, so you cannot see.
Yeah.
So this is it is mainly, you can say these are the disbelievers,
Disbelievers, but it's not enough.
but in a way it also shows, or the way I understand it, is that the disbelievers, they just cover the truth.
Yeah.
That's what I understand from this word. It's like
Yeah.
they are covering it, or they're not letting it.
So in this specific scenario, two things need to be true for them to be kafirin. They need to A, know the truth, and B, cover it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean those who are ignorant of the truth, those who don't know the truth. Those are not the ones that we are talking about in this case. We're talking about specifically the ones who know the truth and decide to hide it. So it's not just you don't believe because you don't know. It's you know and you choose not to believe.
I think I agree. Yeah.
Okay, but that's our understanding.
That's
again.
our understanding.
We're
yeah.
not trying to define it or tell you
Yes.
what to understand, but this
Yes.
is what we kind of get to it. سواء عليهم أنذرت.
أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون, which means that these people who are the الكافرين,
The kafirin.
whether you
Warn them or not,
yeah, whether you warn them or not,
they do
will
not
never
believe. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's again talking to the Prophet ﷺ. So he's telling him, these people الذين كفروا, whether you warn them or you don't, they will not believe.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They will choose their path no matter what, and that's when the word kafar comes into path, because you've warned them, but even if you haven't warned them, it does say if you haven't warned them, so it does include kafara in.
It's you warn them or you don't warn them. Maybe you warn them of what will happen to them, not that you warn them of the truth. Maybe they know the truth and they're hiding it, but God is telling the Prophet whether you warn them or not,
Yeah.
they will still not believe.
But in this case, kafaru. سواء عليهم أنذرتهم أو لا أنذرتهم. Kafaru means even if you warn them or don't warn them.
I think that kafaru, it means that, like you said, I believe that they deep inside know the truth,
And they
but
choose to hide
they
it.
choose to cover it.
Okay.
Maybe even from themselves, I don't know, but and
Okay. Let me just check to see if there's any messages. There are not. Cool. Okay.
ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم.
Now this is where it gets a little bit controversial. At least for me. Now here, khatam Allah has sealed. Khatam is to stamp something, but it's to stamp on their hearts. Khatam Allah on their hearts, wa ala sam'ahum, and on their hearing. So on their hearts and hearings, God has stamped, and their vision, wa ala absarihum, ghashwa. So He has stamped Rishawatan, which means a veil. So He has stamped upon their hearts, their ears, and their eyes a veil. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ.
Yeah. So here, it says that Allah has sealed their hearts and their hearing.
Yeah.
And there's a cover on their eyes.
Yes.
So they do not see. So it's like seal their hearts, meaning that what's inside doesn't go out and what's outside doesn't go in. And on their hearing and on their eyes there's like a cover so they do not see. And وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And azab is also a very interesting word, because what is azab? In one explanation I read that azab comes from ma'azb, from azb. You know ma'azb?
I do not.
Distilled water.
Okay, distilled water. Okay.
Yeah. So what they say is that this is it basically means, when you say someone azab can be interpreted for, definitely in this translation they say they will suffer a tremendous punishment. In my opinion, azab is definitely not punishment.
Okay, what is your opinion?
Punishment is iqab.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, azab is more torture.
And it's not torture, because azab is not.
But
Azib is torture. Ta'zib means torture, but azab is not torture. Azab is, so the thing is, what does azab mean? Azab, if you put it on Google Translate, I think it will give you torment.
Torment sounds about right.
And
Yeah,
it can
torment.
And it can be psychological.
Yeah, it's not necessarily
torment.
torture, but it's
no, it's not torture, and it's not punishment. That's what I think.
But it's suffering. Let's just say
it's suffering in a way.
Yeah.
In which way? I don't think it's clear. And in many ayahs in the Quran, you will find وَلَمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيم وَلَمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ وَلَمْ
Yeah.
عَذَابٌ. So it comes in different places, but is this something in this life? Is it in
the afterlife.
the afterlife?
Yeah,
It doesn't really,
it doesn't specify.
It doesn't specify. It doesn't specify, and it doesn't really give. Here, at least, I don't know, but we can see afterwards.
Yeah.
But here, it doesn't really say what this azab is. The important thing is that I think it's not punishment and it's not torture. It's just torment, or it's misery, unhappiness. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, my issue with this specific ayah is that the way that it's written is Allah, khatam Allah, God has stamped on their hearts, their hearing, and their vision a veil.
Yeah.
So it feels like God has done a thing that has disabled them from hearing, listening, or feeling.
Yeah.
And then there's punishment for them.
But this is not punishment. So, yeah, and this is why I think it's very misleading to say here they will suffer tremendous punishment, because azab doesn't mean punishment.
Okay, well they'll
It's
suffer.
not
They will
punishment.
suffer a thing.
They will suffer something.
They will
It
suffer
might be
something.
that I'm
As a-
suffering from a cold.
But-
I'm
but-
suffering from overthinking.
But then, is this saying that God has done a thing to a human, and that human will suffer?
But in the previous ayah, what it says is إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. So he's speaking about the people who are, and this is why also it's very important to try to understand the word kafara.
Okay.
And this is why we said like it's cover, it's that you know the truth, but you covered it.
Yeah.
So God knows that these people, and he's telling the prophet, so God knows that these people, they will not believe the
No matter what.
prophet,
Yeah.
no matter if he warns them or not. And these people, it seems like they covered the truth. So like sometimes in the Quran also God says Allah يمدهم في طغيانهم.
Okay. Which means what?
Which means like they were not good people, so God gives them the space to do more harm
Okay.
or something. So the way I understand it is that it's the same context. It's like there is someone who decided to cover something, so God gives him the way to do it more and to do more bad.
I understand. However, if we're reading it literally,
Yeah.
in the previous ayah it says, for those who persist in belief, if you warn them or not, they will never believe. This is what they do.
Yeah.
But this is what God has done. Allah has sealed their hearts and hearing, and their sight is covered, and they will suffer tremendous punishment, pain, suffering, whatever. Suffer,
Punishment
we
is
we
not-
agree, suffer.
It's not, punishment is not the right
Punishment's
word.
right, yeah.
But yeah, ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. It means basically that what's inside their heart doesn't come out, and what's outside doesn't go in.
Yeah.
And it's like they're ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة is like it's as if their eyes, there's a cover on their eyes.
Yeah. Which for me, again, I say it's controversial because it feels like
Yeah.
God has done a thing and then the human is suffering.
Yeah, the way I see it, the closest understanding the closest thing I can think of is يمدهم الله في طغيانهم,
Yeah.
which means that they were not good people to begin with,
Yeah.
and they were doing wrong things.
Yep.
So God gave them the means to do even more wrong.
Yep. I understand.
That's what I can think of.
I'm going to put it as, let me just make these all three bigger. Passages related to controversial issues, which we of course know as, this is 2:7. Yep. 2:7. I don't need to write Surah Al-Baqarah because if it's 2:7, it'll be clear. Let's just make this this a bit bigger. Cool. I'll keep it till later. We'll review it. Maybe it'll make more sense as we go along.
Yeah. So these are the two ayahs. The one that we have just discussed, and the one before it.
Yep.
We talk about الكافرين, الذين كفروا.
والذين كفروا, those who are persistent with disbelief.
Yeah.
But
and then in the next ayah he will talk about another type of people.
Okay.
من الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين
Okay, this is pretty interesting, but also pretty clear.
Yeah.
And from the people, there are some that say they believe in God, in Allah, and in the Judgment Day, and the end day, but in reality, they are not believers.
Yes, exactly.
So now this is a different set of people. These are very clear. These are people who say that they believe in Allah and the last day, but they are not true believers. Clear?
يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون.
I think this is also pretty clear and pretty explanatory. We'll just explain it one by one. يخادعون الله, they seek to deceive God, and والذين آمنوا, and those who believe. And in reality, they do not deceive nobody except themselves. And they don't even feel it. They don't even realize it. Very clear.
Yeah.
Very direct.
Yeah.
قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون.
Okay, so this is something that you mentioned before that was going to come in, but now we get to see an example of it.
Yes.
وَفِي قُلُوبِهِمْ, and in their hearts, مَرَضًا, disease. فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ, so God increased them in disease.
Their sickness.
They increased their sickness, kind of like giving them the rope to hang themselves with. And for them, a punishment, but there's that word adab again.
Yeah, adabun
Torment.
alim.
Torment,
But here
painful. A painful torment.
Yeah, here it's azab alim, not azab azim. So this is painful. Yeah. Painful torment.
That's interesting. When we had it, where was? Adab azim, a great torment.
Yes.
But a great just means a large, not necessarily great. Yeah.
A lot.
Whereas now they say a painful torment. وَبِمَا كَانُوا يُكْذِبُونَ,
بما كانوا يكذبون.
which means a painful torment because of what they have lied. Because they will suffer a painful torment because of their lies.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same idea that we were just talking about. So they already have sickness in their hearts.
Yeah.
And then God just increased their sickness.
Yeah.
And these people will face like I don't know, torment.
Cool. Clear? I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but I have a problem with the translation punishment.
Yeah.
Because it's not punishment.
I hear you. Adab, I like the idea of torment because punishment is applying specific pain to suffer. But this isn't applying specific pain to suffer. It's just suffering.
Yes.
It's not with the purpose of educating or fixing behavior. It's with just the purpose of if you do bad, you suffer.
Yeah.
That's the consequence.
And it doesn't say
that we will torture them. Yeah. And it doesn't say what kind of sufferment. So punishment isn't quite the right word. We don't particularly appreciate it, but we understand why it's said that way.
وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون.
This is quite interesting. And if it was told to them, and when they are told, do not spread corruption in the earth, they said, instead we are the reformers, the good doers, the ones that are bringing goodness. Muslihun, salah is to do something good.
Yeah.
So when they were told to them, don't spread corruption in the earth, they say, no, we're doing good, we're not spreading corruption. They believe that they're doing good.
Yeah.
And this applies to everybody, every culture, every society. Nobody's immune from this. The people that believe that they're good but are not necessarily doing good.
Yeah.
Clear?
ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون.
Yep. Here is again. Allah is interesting.
Yeah,
How do you describe Allah?
it's like to bring, like to make you pay attention.
Okay.
So in the previous ayah, he says, when you tell them do not corrupt the world, they say no, but we are the ones who are
Doing good.
But then this is to bring your attention. But hey, they are
Yeah.
the
So in reality,
yes,
they are
They
the
are
the
doing-
ones that who are spreading the corruption. But most importantly, they do not
feel.
realize it. They do not feel it. They do not understand. Cool. Yeah, there's popcorn. There's a smell of
Yeah.
popcorn. We're humans, so we're drawn to the smell of popcorns. Any questions? Nope. Cool.
وإذا قيل لهم آمنوا كما آمن الناس قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون.
Okay, I love this. First of all, well, let's explain it first, and then I'll explain why I love it. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ, and if was said to them, believe as the people, as كما آمن الناس, as the believers do. They said, should we believe as the believers who are fools?
Yeah.
And then
They
here
want
it's
us to believe like the fools. who
like
did.
the fools who did. Beware, they are the ones who are fools themselves, but they do not know. So this is a very, very powerful sentence, and I urge you to use this. I'm gonna add it into my collection of powerful phrases, because essentially anybody that tells you that you are wrong and spreads hatred, you need to share with them this ayah 213. 213. The way that I understand it is, and when they are told, again, this is a continuation of the people who are corrupt but don't believe that they're corrupt. They don't realize that they're corrupt, that they are spreading corruption in the world, but they believe that they are peacemakers.
Yeah, they're called al-munafiqun.
Al-munafiqun.
I don't know if it has a word in English, al-munafiqun.
Where was it? Was it mentioned in the Quran? No.
The people who show that they believe, but they do not.
Yeah. But
they do not believe. You know.
Yeah.
They say we
Yeah.
believe, but we
don't
they
believe.
actually don't believe. It's called the munafiqun.
But essentially, this phrase is directed specifically at the religious leaders that spread corruption in the world and believe they are spreading righteousness and goodness. And those are the ones that we are talking about. So not all the righteous leaders, or not all the religious leaders are good. And if anything, if anybody's taking a look at the history of our world, the religious leaders have had something, let's say, have a lot left to learn and gain about being compassionate and kind and considerate. And when they're told to believe as others believe, they reply with, will we believe as the fools believe? So here is also a reference to the Christianity and the sin of pride. A lot of people who speak in the name of religion speak in terms of, I'm better than you, I know the Quran better than you, therefore I need to tell you how to do it your way, which I think is where a lot of corruption comes in. This is what they believe. They believe that the people who disagree with them or have a different understanding of the Quran or reference are fools, which I think is where the problem exists. And of course, it is those people who think that the others are fools, but they do not know, are the problem. Cool.
وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون.
So an interesting thing happened there is as they were reciting it, they repeated a part of it. Did you see that, or do we have to go back to
No,
it?
what do you mean?
الله وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is why it's better that we are playing the verses, because it's also, it has like all the signs, says okay, here you have to repeat this word, or here you have to stop here and then start here. So
But do you know where?
it's very complex.
Where is the sign that says you have to repeat this?
I think that if you get the Mus'haf, you will find it.
Okay, so it's not in this version, but in So some parts of the Quran should be
don't know,
repeated.
but,
We're not entirely sure. If you notice, they say, first let's explain it, and then we'll see which part they repeated twice. So first let's explaining. وَإِذَا is and when. لَقَوْ, which means they meet. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believe. وَقَالُوا آمَنَّا, and they say that we believed. وَإِذَا
خلوا إلى شياطينهم
وَإِذَا خَلُوا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِم,
means like, so what it says, it's basically when they meet the believers, they say we believe.
When they're together, they
And
say they
when
believe. Are
إذا
alone?
خلوا إلى شياطينهم means if they are alone with their, literally I think it's their
Their
devils,
their
or
demons.
their demons.
Yeah.
But what it means is like their it can be their
own personal
their-
demons
their
or greater
bosses,
demons.
or like their
The servants
I
of
don't know.
darkness, the servants
Yeah.
of... Because you can pray to actual entities that exist outside of you, but also we have the capacity of good and evil within us. So it's also talking about when you're left to your own...
It can mean that. It can mean that you're left alone with your own demons.
Yeah.
And it can mean also that when they are alone with their evil
counterparts.
bosses,
yeah.
whatever, they say, no, we are with you. We are just
They
fooling
say,
them.
no, we are with you, but with them we're
We're
mocking
just
them.
mocking them.
Yeah. So the part that's repeated, وَإِذَا خَلُوا إِلَى شَيَاطِينَهُمْ, and if they are alone with their demons, or their devils, or their evil ones, it could be a bit... That was repeated twice. I'm not entirely sure as to why it was repeated twice.
It's in the... I think it's in the way that you have to read to make the meaning correct.
Okay. I don't fully understand it. Maybe we'll put this into why was it repeated, because I'd be very curious as to say why. Let's do this. Copy. Quran notes. Passages to be explained. 2:14. Why is a part of this repeated? Cool. Okay.
الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون.
This is interesting. It's also a few words that are a bit complicated. Let's start it. Allahu yastahzi' bihum. Allah means God. Yastahzi' means mocks.
Yeah.
Makes a mockery of. Bihum is of them. وَيَمُدُّهُم, and he prolongs. It's the giving, the extension of the rope that you're going to use to hang yourself, metaphorically speaking. فِي طَغْيِهِمْ, in their transgression, and he extends their transgressions.
Ya'mahun.
Ya'mahun
means like يتخبطون.
يتخبطون, to me like be in the dark and bumping
like
around.
You're walking in the dark and then you're just like banging your head in
blindly,
every wall, blindly lost
moving forward.
And you don't know where you're going. So
so God is going to mock them, and he's going to extend them their transgressions and their ability to wander blindly. So Allah will throw their mockery back at them, leaving them to continue wandering blindly in their defiance. So there is a lot of references that God will continue giving you the power to further your transgressions or to go towards the path of guidance.
Yes, exactly.
God empowers you to do both.
Yeah, I think that this is evident in a lot of these ayahs. Like for the believers, God will give you more and guide you to the right path. And then for the kafirin, when he talks about the kafirin, he says that God will like blind them completely. And then nahum azabun azim. And then for these people who are munafiqeen, I don't know how do you say it in English, munafiqeen.
Let's keep it till it pops up. Once it
Okay.
pops up, then we'll explain it.
Yeah, so the people who say that they are believers,
But they are
but
not.
they are actually not. God will also يمدهم في طغيانهم means that He will give them the means to continue
their transgressions.
Their transgression, or their like طغيانهم can mean like what do you say طغيانهم?
Let's put it into Google. Their tyranny.
Yes, exactly, their tyranny. So God will give them the means to expand their tyranny.
Yeah.
The people who say that they are believers but actually are not.
So here's.
And then when they expand their tyranny, then يعمهون means that they wander blindly and they're like
bumping against the wall, not knowing where
exactly,
they're going.
bumping against the walls and not knowing where they're going, and they are like completely lost.
So if you wish for darkness, God empowers you to go to the dark, but bear in mind, it's very dark and you won't be able to tell where you're going.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Clear?
أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين.
This is very interesting because he's talking about the people that we were talking about in the previous ayah. So he's saying that these people اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى.
Who bought?
They bought
the darkness.
Yeah, darkness with their guidance.
Their guidance. They were given guidance and they traded it in. They traded in guidance for darkness.
فما ربحت
or for straying away from the right path.
Yeah, فما ربحت تجارتهم means that their trade is unsuccessful. This is not a successful trade. This is not a good trade.
They did not profit from their trade.
Yeah.
And they were not muhtadin, the guided ones. Huda is the word here. Huda is guidance, and muhtadin is the guided ones. So they traded their guidance for
darkness.
It says dalala, which is not darkness is a bit so who trade guidance for misguidance is another word. Let's try and put it into Google to see what it translates to. Misguidance, dalala is misguidance, so they've traded clarity and direction for misclarity and misdirections, and they're not going to profit from it, but instead they're going to be the not guided ones. Cool.
مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون.
Okay, bit by bit. It's a bit of a long one. مثلهم كمثل الذين استقوا. Okay, مثلهم, their example is like the example of those استوقد النار.
استوقد نارا means like he
started the fire.
He started a fire.
Kindled the fire.
Yeah, but it doesn't say أوقد نارا, and this is for people who study Arabic and who study the Quran. This is an interesting difference as well. It's not أوقد نارا because the simple verb is أوقد نارا, but here he says it's استوقد نارا.
What's the difference?
Let's put it. I don't really know, but it's like these kinds of things that people study and they look at the whole.
What's the other
Quran,
word? استوقد أوقد.
And they look at where this word was mentioned and where this word was mentioned and then start to try to explain the difference.
It's a bit more passive. He was kindled, استوقد, versus kindle, which is an active verb. أوقد is to turn it on. استوقد it was kind of kindled through him, but not necessarily.
Yeah, I think I read in one of the explanations is that أوقد نارا, when you say أوقد نارا, is actually he lit a fire.
Yes.
This is the simple verb, the simple way of saying it. But when you say استوقد نارا, the way it is said here is because it's not actually, it doesn't refer to an actual fire.
Yeah.
It's an example, so
it awoken.
It's like
it's like awakening.
Give like a certain.
So from those people,
image.
they are the same as those who have kindled a fire, but when it lit, when it illuminated what is around them, ذهب الله بنورهم. Oh, God took away their light. وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون. And God has, it's like somebody who has kindled a fire and could see, but as soon as it lit what's around him, God has taken their light and left them in the dark where they cannot see.
Yeah.
And this is referring specifically to the people who have traded their guidance for misguidance.
Yes.
So not just everybody else.
Yes.
Okay. Further description of those people without the light.
بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون.
Okay. This is a very powerful description. Summun bukmun, they are willfully is to be debated because they don't mention will here.
Yeah.
But they say they are deaf, dumb, and blind, and they will have no right to return to the right path. وَلَهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. It says no right to return.
So they do not return.
But the understanding is the right path. Again, willfully and the right path, I'm not sure are correct, and they don't necessarily belong to be here. But here they describe the people who have traded their guidance for misguidance.
And this is the example.
And this is the example of what they are. The description of them is they are deaf, dumb, and blind, and they will never return.
So yeah, I think that this is, it's important to like take it into the context of the example, and then there is another example as
Yeah.
well. So in this example, they are deaf, dumb, and blind,
yes.
and they do not see. So it's like they lit a fire, and then God took away their light, so they could not see anymore, and they're like as if they are deaf, dumb, and blind, and they cannot go back.
Yeah. And the Quran is written in chapters and ayat on purpose. You can't just take one part of it and say God wants you to be dumb, deaf, and blind. You have to understand that there's a specific context of who he's talking about, and these all connect together for a specific reason. Okay.
أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين.
Okay, it's a bit of a mouthful, so let's take it step by step. أو كصيب كصيب or like a rainstorm من السماء from the sky فيه ظلمات, in it are darkness and thunder and lightning. يجعلون, they put أصابعهم, they put their fingers in their ears from the thunderclaps, from the sound of the thunderclap. حذرا للموت, in fear of death. And God is
محيط بالكافرين means
محيط
that
بالكافر.
he knows them. Like
Yeah.
Allah محيط بالكافرين means that God knows the kafirin.
Yeah. And muhit literally translates to ocean. So it's all encompassing like the ocean. So when they say muhit something, it means it's covering completely.
Yeah.
It includes all of the kafirin, not specifically just the disbelievers, but the disbelievers that knew the light and actively covered the truth.
Yeah. So he knows them and he is capable of like, it's like you said, like he's around them.
And here we're talking about the Day of Judgment, or what is?
No, it's also an example. So if you look, and this is why it's important that we take we take it in context. So so he gave one example, which is someone who lit the fire and then God took away his light. أو كصيب من السماء, or so this ayah starts with or. Rain comes from the sky, and then there is thunder and there is lightning. So these people put their fingers in their ears because they are afraid of death.
Of death. But so I don't understand how we all of a sudden started talking about the. Why are we saying or?
Because it's like the other example. So we are still talking about the kafirin.
Yep. Here in the previous one, they said that are dumb, blind, and deaf, dumb, and blind.
Yeah, so they do not go back. and then he's giving another example. So it's like
Oh.
this or
Okay, so
like
the first
this.
example is somebody who wakes up with light all around them, and Allah takes the light away, leaving them in complete darkness, to be blind, dumb, and deaf.
Yes.
Or they're caught. It's like those
Or
caught in a
It's
rainstorm.
as if they are caught in a rainstorm,
With
and then
darkness,
there's
thunder,
a
and
lot of
lightning.
darkness and thunder and yeah.
And they press their fingers to their ears because the sounds are so
Yeah.
overwhelming, and they're afraid
And then
of
you
death.
continue with the next ayat also.
Okay.
It explains more.
About this specific scenario,
Yes.
the lightning and thunder.
Yeah.
يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير.
Okay, so continuing from the lightning and the them being afraid for their lives, because Allah is for the sound of thunderclap, fear of death, and Allah is encompassing of all the of all the disbelievers. It continues saying, وَيَكَادُ الْبَرْقُ, almost the lightning snatches away or steals their vision, their sight, every time it flashes.
They walk. So
whenever
it lights
lightning
up,
strikes,
they walk, and then when
They
the
walk.
light goes away, وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ قَامُوا, it means like when the light goes away, they stop.
And
they
when the
stand
light
still.
darkens on them, they stand still. So when the light is on, they move. When the light is
Yes.
gone, they stand still.
Yeah.
And-
وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِم وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And if God
has willed,
has willed, he could
take away
also
their hearing and their sight,
yeah,
because God is capable
of everything.
of everything, all powerful.
Yeah.
They walk in the sight, but when the darkness covers them, they stand still. Had Allah willed, He could have taken away their hearing and their sight. Surely Allah is most capable of everything.
Yeah. So I think that these two examples are like very interesting, and it takes some time to understand what it means exactly, I think.
Like
But
what?
what I from what I understand, it's like in the two examples, that there was a light, and I think that this light can be the Quran or the guidance.
But let's say
so there
the
was
the light of the correct knowledge, the guidance.
Yes. And then this was taken away, or this was not there anymore. And when it was not there anymore, then these people lose their sight and they are completely in the darkness.
But not just completely in the darkness, but it's almost like they're helpless. It's like they're in a storm, and then the only light they'll see is when lightning flashes.
Yeah.
When you don't have your own light, you're at mercy to the universe and to God. And I think this kind of talks about the surrender to God. I think that's the whole point of the book, is that if you don't follow the guidance within your heart, and if you make the mistake within your heart to cover the guidance, then you will be at the mercy of the world, and God is all powerful and most capable. Clear?
Yeah.
يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون.
This is, I think, the first command.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too.
Let's explain it. يا أيها الناس, O mankind, اعبدوا, worship, ربكم, your Lord, الذي خلقكم, the one who created you, والذين من قبلكم, and the one who created you and the ones before you, لعلكم تتقون. لعلكم تتقون is not so that you may become righteous, but it is kind of, there is a rudimentary explanation of it.
This is why I was telling you tattaqun, I think, is more like to be protected of something. Tattaqul Allah, like
To be mindful of God.
Yes, to be mindful of God.
Yeah.
May you be, so it says like all people, or
yeah. Humanity.
Oh,
And
humanity.
nas means humans. Yeah.
Worship God, who has created you and who has created those who were before you. May you be protected or
So that you
guided,
may be-
or like
Become righteous, become mindful of God, become
yes, may
pious.
you become
pious,
Mindful.
mindful of God, let's say.
Yeah.
But this is the first command of God saying, worship your Lord,
Yeah.
the one who created you.
Yeah.
It's a direct command.
And worship, I think here is mainly to also abudu would mean like wahidu wa ittaba'u, or like
No,
believe
I think you're
one God.
no, I think you're adding context into it. Abd is to worship.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't explain. It doesn't explain. Yeah.
Is like to worship this one.
To worship the God. Now, how do we worship
This one
God?
God,
I think
yeah.
it's explained later in the books. It doesn't say specifically how to worship. It just says that you must worship.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون.
Okay, complicated language for me. I didn't quite understand it completely in Arabic, so let's take it step by step to see if I can get it. الذي, now here we're talking about continuation of becoming mindful of Him, of Allah, of God, of your Lord. Who, the one who, ja'ala, made lakum, for you, who made for you the earth. Firashan translates
I think it's just like
loosely translated a mattress, but it's a place where you rest your head. Firashan was sama, who made for you a place to rest, and the sky.
والسماء بناء means like and the sky like
a canopy, a structure above you.
Yes, like a ceiling.
Like a ceiling. And he brought down from the ceiling water. فأخرج به, and he brought forth with it of fruits. So thamar translates to date, but thamarat translates to fruit.
But thamarat, I think it means like either nabatat or ashgar.
Vegetation, plantation,
yes,
life.
Everything that comes out of the land with
nature,
which is good for people.
Yeah. رزقا لكم, as a blessing to you. So here it says provision, but it can be a blessing for you. So do not set up. فلا تجعلوا الله أندادا.
فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا.
وأنتم تعلمون.
Andada means like.
It says rivals, but like.
Kind of.
Adversaries.
Yeah. Like equals. Andada means
equals.
like. Andada means equals, but not on the same side. Like.
Yeah.
Like do not make equals to God. That.
Do not put anyone comparison
yes.
to God. وأنتم تعلمون. And this is, here it's very specific. And while you know. Now this is a very specific phrase. Again, it's talking to those who know, not to those who don't know. But do not compare, do not put someone similar to God if you do know.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's check quickly. We have 2 hours and a half. We have no more questions, so it seems to be fine. I'm happy with it. Okay.
وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بسورة من مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين.
Okay. And continuation for the previous one, as it always does. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ, and if you are فِي رَيْب, in doubt, مِمَّا نَزَّلْنَا, from what we have revealed, is not the correct explanation. From نَزَّلْنَا means to have brought down. عَلَى عَبْدِنَا, to our slave. فَآتُوا, then produce. بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ, so produce a chapter of its like. And call your witnesses without God.
No, it means other than. وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ
إن كنتم صادقون. What does أدعو شهدائكم من دون الله?
شهدائكم
And call your
can
witnesses?
mean like call your witnesses or call your gods.
Yeah.
It can also mean like.
But I like the term witness because we can use it in the terms of courts of law. Whenever you want to say something is real or something is not, you need witnesses to say that they have done it. So they're saying if you have doubt with what we have brought for you from what we have
From
brought
the
down to ours, and notice that the Prophet is referred to as our slave.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because even the Prophet is considered a slave of Islam,
Yeah.
as a slave of God, so to speak.
Yeah.
So if you doubt what we have brought to the Prophet, so how about you share a chapter of the same likes that has been brought down to him, and call upon your witnesses without God, other than God, if you are telling the truth. So this is almost like a challenge to say, if you don't believe what we're saying, then by all means
bring something like it.
This
is why it's like the Quran never something as like a similar book came, and this is I think what this ayah means. So if you doubt these verses, then bring something like it, and then call your witnesses or your gods or other than God, or other than God, if you are really truthful.
Yeah. It's an open invitation, an open challenge to anybody that doesn't believe or has doubt. Come up with something different. The Quran has been written the same as it was 1,400, 500 years ago, and still stands. For a document to still stand after language has changed so dramatically over the past centuries, let alone millennia, because it's been at least 1 millennia, 1,000 years. The Quran. Oh, also maybe a reference for our viewers is that the Quran claims that it is the last remaining miracle on earth. This is the last miracle that we have before us is the book and is the text, and it hasn't been changed for 1,500 years. And this is why the comparison comes to claim. Show us a document that was written of that time that has the same power and reverence that the Quran does.
Yeah.
Okay.
فإن لم تفعلوا ولن تفعلوا فاتقوا النار التي وقودها الناس والحجارة أعدت للكافرين.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
فإن لم تفعلوا, and if you're not able to produce such a text that is able to be compared to the Quran, and here it says, and you never will. فاتقوا, here's that word taqwa again. Fear the fire, al-nar, التي,
the fuel,
the fire that fuels, وقودها, the people, and the stones that are prepared for the disbelievers. Okay, this is a bit complicated for me. Can you explain this to me in simple terms? If you don't do it and you won't do it, is clear.
I will try to explain it as much as I understand.
Sure, no worries.
Also, it's a bit complicated. But it says, so if you don't bring
the reference,
a verse,
the
if
Quran,
you are not able to bring a verse like what we brought down on the Prophet, and you will not.
That's clear.
Yeah, so it says that if you don't, and you will never be able to do that, so
you have to fear the fire.
Taku again is the same word. I think it means the
be wary of, be mindful of.
Yes, be mindful of, or try to avoid. Taku, try to avoid the fire, which has as fuel people and stones. And what I read is that stones, maybe it was referring to the stones because at that time of the Prophet, people used to worship actual statues and stones. So maybe it's also referring to that. So there is a fire and people and stones are the fuel to this fire, and this fire was prepared for the kafirin. And the kafirin is again this word which means that the people who hide the truth. Yeah,
so let me understand it. The fire that was prepared for the disbelievers, which is fuel, is people and stones.
Yeah.
So the fire that was prepared for the disbelievers, not just the disbelievers, the ones that know the truth but hide it, and the fuel of it is the people and the stones.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a bit of a long one. Help us.
وبشر الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أن لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار كلما رزقوا منها من ثمرة رزقا قالوا هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل وأتوا به متشابها ولهم فيها أزواج مطهرة وهم فيها خالدون.
Okay, now this is walking away from the people that we have been describing, the wrongdoers, the disbelievers, and now we have good news. وَبَشِّرْ, and give the good news, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, for those that believe, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and have committed the righteous deeds. إِنَّ لَهُمْ الْجَنَّاتِ, إِنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتِ, and to them there will be gardens that flow from below them, rivers.
Rivers flow below.
Below them. I never understood.
the-
Why does it say the rivers flow below?
Below the Jannat.
Yeah, why?
I don't know.
Because this is repeated many times in the
Yes.
Quran.
Yes. That there are gardens, and below the gardens there are the rivers.
Yeah. Which is
Rivers
a bit interesting.
flow below the gardens.
I mean, if we take it as a metaphor, we take the flowing of rivers, the flowing of water, to be a source of life for vegetation,
Yeah.
for health, for growth, for
Yeah,
demanding. So I
yeah.
think this is describing the health of the nature of the paradise that is promised.
Yes.
From under them the rivers, kullama, every time, razaqu minha, they are, okay, so rizq can sometimes mean blessing, can sometimes mean provision. Razaqu minha means that they are provided from it, from like fruit, when they benefit from it. Every time they benefit from its fruit or provisions, they say, this is what has been blessed to us or has been provided to us from before. وَآتُوا بِهِ.
Mutashabihan. So what this means, I read the meaning, to be honest, because language is a bit complicated here, I think.
Sure.
So so when they are given a fruit, then they look at it and it looks the same like what they were used to on earth.
Okay.
So but it is not exactly the same
Okay, because
when they eat it, or it is not the same.
it isn't. It resembles it, but
yes, exactly. It resembles it, but it's not exactly the same. So they say, oh, then when they look at it, they say, oh, this is what we had before.
this is what was been provided from before.
Yes, but actually it looks like it, but it is not.
So what they will be given instead is something that resembles, and for them in it, spouses that are purified, and in it they are abiding forever.
Yeah. وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ.
Okay, so it talks about the heaven that's provided, and in it has azwaj, says spouses, but can also mean partners. Zoj means zojin, a partner of two. It refers to, but it does say spouses, so more than one connection. Azwajun, mish zawja or zoj. Azwaj. Spouses that are purified for them, and they will abide in it forever.
And purified is also not pure, because in the translation here you will find it as pure spouses, but it's purified spouses. So it means like mutahara, like it's like they were purified.
Yeah.
Like they were purified by God, like God.
Yeah. So for instance, if I take like the concept of a needle, and you want to put a needle into your hand to like take something out, you usually use a fire to purify it beforehand.
Yes, exactly. It's
and
the
once
same,
it's purified, it's removed of all. If it's in metals, it's removed of all the crude elements of it, the negatives, the bad. So you kind of remove the negatives and you keep the positives. But you are promised spouses or partners in this heaven.
And in it they are eternal.
And in it they are eternal. Yeah.
So this is like, so the previous ayah was talking about the fire.
The fire
which is
for the disbelievers
for the
and the ones.
disbelievers.
Yeah.
And this is the one for
The reward.
that for the believers.
Yeah.
They will be in gardens.
Yeah.
That has and there are rivers under the gardens.
Yeah.
And and then the rest.
So as I understand it, God is explaining to us the why of being a Muslim, the consequence of being a disbeliever, and the reward of being a believer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Oh, do you have any idea? خلاص بقى?
Yeah.
Can you do 22 more minutes, or should we keep it here? راحتك. I'm happy with keeping it 225. 225 is perfect.
Yeah, I think
225. So. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have stopped the first session from 1:1 to 2:25. We hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you very much for your attendance and for your time.